Well, this won't take long. Robert Mugabe, former president of Zimbabwe, has finally died. You won't see any tears shed in this corner. The obituaries which followed the death necessarily talked expansively about his career. They began, of course, with saying that he was very bright and shrewd and book learned. I can vouch for the brightness and shrewdness. I encountered Mugabe at least 3 times over the course of life, and whether he is in a meeting or whether he's from a public platform, he's very impressive. And then the obituaries went on to make the point that in the first years of his tenure, he brought high standards of health and education to Zimbabwe, and of course he wrestled Zimbabwe out of the clutches of the colonial masters in Rhodesia, and he was an anti-apartheid activist. But the obituaries also, of course, emphasize the pattern of violence which characterized his career, particularly immediately after he came to power in 1980, when in the first few years in the area of Zimbabwe known as Matabeleland, he oversaw the slaughter of between 20 and 30,000 opponents in a way that was absolutely incomprehensible and insufferable. Along with that, everyone remembers, I think, the expropriation of land of the farmers, the white farmers. So Zimbabwe, which was once the breadbasket of Southern Africa, became the beggar's bowl of Southern Africa. And of course, there has been this pattern of corruption, murder, incarceration, torture, things which sear the soul. But ironically, and in a way which is largely indefensible, the one thing that should have stood out in all the obituaries was largely suppressed or not extant at all. And it's this: Mugabe was the artisan of rape. He used rape at every turn. He used rape to strike fear into communities, to extend his misogyny, to destroy families and the women, and of course in particular. He used rape as a weapon and a tool with an absolute ferocity. And it kind of elevated his depravity to the pantheon of evil. We know about that in AIDS-Free World because we have looked closely at the elections in 2008 when Mugabe unleashed his youth corps and his war veterans to rape women indiscriminately and brutally, simply and solely because they supported the opposition party. And you know what? As an addendum to all of this, the entire international community has known of the raping. The United Nations has known of the raping. All the agencies have known of the raping. They could have confronted Mugabe along the way and possibly brought it to an end. No one raised a peep, least of all his fellow African presidents. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.